In the name of God, I want to describe my paper about investigation the possibility of using the principle of smart growth approach in the empowerment of spontaneous settlement, and we select the Khak district in Tehran of Iran as a case study. At first, in introduction, we discuss about Islam area in the world and developing countries. In fact, the developing world, however, the Islam houses more than 800 million people, or 18 percent of Arab residents in those countries. For Middle East, 35% of all people living in cities were Islam resident, and by 20 and 2020, it is estimated that 300 million person live in spontaneous area. Khak neighborhood in Tehran is one of the such settlement that was formed in Tehran after the Iran Revolution. Due to its located on the border of Tehran, this neighborhood suffer from various problems such as high crime, poverty, unemployment, and the lack of service. Despite this problem, I'm proposing a different approach to improving the neighborhood. And similar neighborhoods, there is not still an agreement to take action in this area. Hence, in this paper, it is attempt to examine if a smart growth approach can help promote such neighborhood. For this purpose, firstly, the literature of spontaneous areas, empowerment, and smart growth is being reviewed. Then methodology of paper is described. Finally, the feature of the smart growth approach in relation to Khak neighborhood are investigate and deduce. In the literature review, we firstly describe empowerment and smart growth. There are three objectives set in the concept of empowerment as a solution for making a spontaneous settlement more livable. First, providing a basis of sustainable and comprehensive enrichment of an environment to superior health, safety, and providing in spontaneous settlement. Second, providing foresight while predicting the spread of future spontaneous. And thirdly, capacity building for broad participation of residents of a spontaneous settlement in decision making and local action. Empowerment approach with the mentioned characteristic have a lot of overlap with the smart growth approach, especially in capacity building. In the following, the smart growth approach is discussed with the view as a process enabling the empowerment of spontaneous settlement. In the smart growth, we firstly define the smart growth from American Planning Association approach. The American Planning Association approach has defined smart growth as being a collection of planning experience, regulation, development which use the Earth's resource in more effective, way through creating building density, infill development with rational accessibility. One of the objectives of this approach is reduce horizontal city growth production of hand and environment term, and creation the neighborhood unit with a sense of community. As a whole, the principle of smart growth are mixed land use, building density, housing alternative, and walkability and community cooperation. So the mentioned principle must be discussed in Haksefit as a case study of the paper. For these papers, using document and analysis of existing data as a secondary analysis include direct interview with the neighborhood residents and summarizing their view and suggestion for selecting the best alternative, collecting the minutes of meeting on subject of planning for the region from responsibility and well-being is used for the case study. Application of the principle in Haksefit, first about mixed use. We discuss about the study of strategic planning of Haksefit show that our 16% of all activity land use are mixed pattern of distribution. Activity in status quo show that function tend to be located more along the street, and in contrast activity inside the residential area with a certain center is less observed. Therefore, it could be said that the potential for mixed land use within the neighborhood is high, and this can be used as opportunity. However, the area of studies and the surrounding area are filled with function. Another important point is that in regard to the activity structure within the area, there is a high number of units without any activity, which means there is a capacity for more new commercial activity. About compact building, we find that currently half of all existing plots have density that less than 120%. The average building density is only 125%. Density was one of the three major principles of the smart growth approach. The other two principles is spatial separation for land use and transportation mode are defined by density. Using current data within the GIS environment and using AHP weight criteria model, where research for a suitable site which can houses high density. The site selection endeavor, 80% of the neighborhood still don't have sufficient infrastructure and capacity for high density. About housing alternative, we can say currently the number of household in each dwelling unit is 1.6, which is relatively in line with country's average. This number for spontaneous settlements is natural. Currently, average percent per parcel is about 6, which relation to existing space, which usually 2 or 3 room per household may seem very high and destroy the privacy, creating social problem. And this situation point to creating housing pattern that have more room and less public space, such as dance and living room. Rooms which with a smaller dimension that can create more privacy for more populated houses. There needs to be modification to the parcel size, which means readjustment that number of person per parcel is reduced and create a more normal giving pattern. In the study of renewal of social, physical in the cultural axis of Haksefid. This was used in the Haksefid urban landscape study, has been updated. The pattern in general, the trend of creating balance between quality within housing pattern and the economic capacity and ability for neighborhood with focus on subdivision issue and density increase. Also, we discuss about walkability based on studies about 14% of existing land use area is for street network. This can be an opportunity. Currently, the highest volume in pedestrian is the sidewalk along Zahedian Street. The Sultani and Vasili Street also have high volume of pedestrian movement in peak hour. The weight of Zahedian Street is about 2 meter, 2.5 meter, and in the other street is about 3 meter. Currently, only at the Zahedi and Shariati intersection there is a pedestrian crosswalk, and other in the intersection don't have any. Thus, the pedestrian coordinates are incomplete. More attention should be given to quality of pedestrian walkability. We are focused on with issue below from urban studies perspective. Adjacently to transportation terminal, adjacently to environmental sensitive areas, adjacently to major industrial area, and spread of land use with moving in unsuitable function from preferred. The final part of the paper, we discuss about community cooperation. In the study of community cooperation, there are 2 factors involved. First, creating common goals, and second, providing social intersection as a supplement of the first function. There are following points to be considered. Bounding social capital. If the social capital have 3 aspects, namely trust, cooperation, and social anticipation, then the residents of Haksefid have all these 3. The major reason for having the social capital in this neighborhood has been the common origin of migration from which the resident migrate from. Secondly, the most important mechanism for creating a public institution within the neighborhood is to have suitable space for coming together and being face to face. Such space doesn't exist. On the other hand, preparing people for participation is also important, which in this regard, using influence individual and having meeting with them and informing people through them can lead to creating participation with least cost. This can lead to straight the current cooperation and building places for public gathering. They need the following formal place which can increase social interaction, include neighborhood council, skills houses, and social cultural houses and mosques. In the conclusion, we say that by the research that the need of change to the perspective on phenomena of spontaneous area is unavoidable. Different aspects and factors such as social, population, economy, physical, environment factor in the process of solving this issue are effective. In terms of social tool, they have important impact on capital security, sense of place, social participation. All these factors together on the places development are impact. In terms of economical tools, change in the land use prices, land prices, and the variety of area and price of housing using suitable density using mixed land use are usable. Physical and environmental tools for spatial quantity are important, and in turn their effect on economic development, pedestrian accessibility, sense of place, sense of attachment, variety of transportation mode can lead to creating human dignity. In this research, the physical and spatial principle of neighborhood, including social interaction, mixed land use, pedestrian oriented sense of place, level of open space, and relation between many center, transportation mode, and social participation in Haksevit was discussed. The hypothesis was that using smart growth principle can elevate the high environment, which is spontaneous settle.